Remember those 8 massive spiral wells plunging 648 meters beneath the Cafre pyramid? The discovery that shattered 4,500 years of archaeology? Well, the team behind that bombshell just dropped something even bigger. Evidence so compelling that it could force the hand of mainstream Egyptology. But, like every Avenger has their foibles, the heroes in this scenario might not be as up to the challenges we'd hoped. I'm Carol Ann, and welcome to the In-Between. A few months ago, we covered the earth-shaking announcement, link in the description, from the Khafre Project. Researchers Corrado Malanga, Filippo Biondi, and Armando May, who claimed their synthetic aperture radar, or SAR, Doppler tomography had detected massive underground structures beneath the Giza pyramids. 8 cylindrical wells spiraling down 648 meters. That's 2 Eiffel Towers. Cubic chambers 80 meters on each side. An underground complex potentially stretching 1.2 kilometers beneath the entire Giza plateau. At the time, skeptics questioned whether satellite radar could possibly detect structures at such extreme depths. The Egyptian ministry stayed silent. Many dismissed it as fringe archaeology. While that last part is still true for the most part, there are a few things that have changed that I think are important in keeping you up to date. This past Saturday, June 14th, 2025, the Cafre boys were in Malta attending the first International Khafre Project conference, which, from what I can tell, was a 90-minute presentation given by Filippo Biondi, offering a more in-depth explanation on the findings they released back in March. And speaking of Filippo Biondi, let's take a brief moment.
Can I have a moment to myself, please?
To talk about all 3 of the original presenters. I have to confess that when the last conference broke the internet, I was way more focused on what was being said than who was saying it. And the actual English translation of the entire 4-hour conference wasn't available yet. So it took a while before I could go back and digest what all 3 speakers had to say in full. Ever have that feeling that you wish you knew then what you know now?
How the hell do I know what I don't know?
Now, let me be clear. I'm not throwing shade on anyone. And I'm not one of those people who believe that you have to have a doctorate in any subject to be qualified to speak about it. That being said, let's start with Armando May. While his background does seem to be steeped in ancient Egypt, and he's written several books on the subject, his presentation at the original conference meanders through a squishy redating of the entire Giza complex before morphing into numerology and the Emerald Tablets. If you watched our episode on the Emerald Tablets, link in the description, you'll know that I'm not the biggest fan. As far as Corrado Malanga is concerned, he was a researcher for 35 years in the Department of Chemistry and Industrial Chemistry of the University of Pisa. But as of late, seems to be spending most of his time, outside of the Cafre Project, on subjects like crop circles and alien abduction. Please hear me now. I am not saying that those things are not worth studying, except for the Emerald Tablets. They, in my humble opinion, just don't have a place at this table. This table is reserved for those with hard, tangible proof. The evidence they have shown the world so far is tangible, but is it real? Which brings us to the third of our 3 musketeers, Filippo Biondi. This guy is a signal processing researcher specializing in synthetic aperture radar technologies and has a PhD in telecommunication engineering. So he knows his satellites, and he's filed for the patents for the SAR Doppler tomographic imaging that he's invented. And it's certainly possible that Filippo has taken the other 2 under his wing and is teaching them what's what with this technology. But at least this guy knows this stuff like maybe no one else. So thankfully, this is the guy who gives the entire detailed presentation at the new 90-minute conference on June 14th. And when I say detailed, I mean detailed.
So the spatial resolution is this one here, delta, and is measured in meters. It's equal to lambda, which is the wavelength times r.
What? You didn't get all of that? I will have a link to the original 90-minute conference video from the channel Project Unity in the description. But I can tell you, after watching all 90 minutes of it, I feel like I can speak Italian now. Welcome to the InBetween. Go watch the conference if you want all the juicy equations, but suffice it to say, it's like the ultrasound your doctor uses, except instead of sound waves, they're using electromagnetic pulses from a satellite 600 kilometers above the Earth. But the real innovation is what they call photon-phonon interaction. When electromagnetic energy from the satellite hits matter, it creates physical vibrations. They've developed software that transforms these electromagnetic impulses into acoustic data, which can then be transformed into 3D models. Now, at the conference in March, they went into some of their experiments with real-world environments to get proof of concept. But this time they started from the very beginning. They started in Corrado Malanga's garage. Water, a camera, a computer, and a vibration generator. And a little wine.
There is some wine, yeah, but it's like it's...
What? They're Italian! They created vibrations that put water into motion, recorded this as raw data, and successfully retrieved images of objects beneath the water's surface. Tables, shapes. They could see through the water and map what was underneath. Once they proved the concept worked, they moved to real-world targets where they already knew what should be there. They tested on railway tunnels inside the Carlin Tunnel in Nevada. Perfect. Next, they targeted Gran Sasso Mountain in Italy, nearly 10,000 feet tall or 3,000 meters, with a physics laboratory buried inside the mountain core. This lab contains a laser interferometer and other vibrating equipment that make perfect targets. They created tomographic images from space showing the tunnel passing through the mountain, the laboratory inside, and even the interferometer itself. The results are a little noisy, but they're there. And they didn't stop there. They scanned the Mosul Dam in Iraq. We got to see a glimpse of this in the first presentation, but this time they went more in depth, talking about how they detected the tunnels, the concrete injection work, and could even tell the difference between the two different types of turbines inside the dam. They even mapped sections of the Gotthard Tunnel in the Alps. Every test validated their technique on known structures. One critical point, their 3D models are human created, not AI generated. They use artificial intelligence only to calculate probabilities for structure detection, but humans interpret the data and build the models from scan results. This matters because it means every structure they're claiming to find has been verified by human analysts of the radar data, not algorithmic pattern matching that might create false positives. It's also important to note that the only serious criticism the Khafre Project has gotten so far is that they haven't scanned anything deep like a known mine shaft to prove they can see the 1.2 kilometer depth they claim to see in the Cafre scans. That should be an easy fault to remedy, which I hope they do soon. But back to the research. Now it was time to take the show to Giza. First stop, the Osiris Shaft, which is located on the limestone causeway that runs between the Khafre Pyramid and the Sphinx. This is a known structure discovered in the early 1800s and partially excavated in the 1930s. Previous scans and exploration have mapped out this labyrinth of tunnels down about 100 feet or 31 meters, where it meets a pool of slightly salty water. The Cafre team's scans perfectly show all three levels of the shaft. And if you look closely, their scans show this shaft goes much deeper than previously known, 2.5 times deeper, with an enormous structure at the bottom. And if nothing else, it shows that the technology works to a depth of 100 feet, not the 2,000 foot depth they claim to have found structures in yet, but it's a start. In the Great Pyramid, they detected the famous 9-meter corridor that Professor Zawi Hawass discovered. We will chat more about him later. showing the room behind it with visible roof structure. They confirmed the large void that other researchers found, providing independent verification with completely different technology. But the Khafre Pyramid remains their most spectacular discovery. Distinct pillars extending from top to bottom, each surrounded by spiral structures, all connected through shaft systems. These aren't natural geological formations. They show clear signs of engineering and intentional design. Now, I know the images from the original conference left many people, myself included, thinking, how on earth did they get spirals from looking at these scans? And Filippo must have heard the same questions because this time he actually shows us. At this point, he talks a little bit more about the pillars and the things they appear to have located up to 1.2 kilometers below the surface, reiterating what they talked about in the first conference. However, this time he adds that they have actually detected those same pillar structures under all 3 Giza pyramids. And just so you know, when they first saw the scans of those pillar figures, Corrado Malanga insisted that the color blobs they were looking at had to be just noise of some kind. So they changed their radar, they changed their satellite, they redrew all the images, and the pillars just kept coming back. In addition to the pillars, they're also investigating what they call the Tomb of the Birds tunnel system that runs below the entire Giza plateau, a network explored in the early 1900s that researchers say extends from the northwestern corner below the central pyramid. In the western field where the mastaba tombs sit, they've discovered that each rectangular structure contains multiple vertical shafts connected by horizontal passages. It's an extensive underground network that suggests these surface tombs might be covering earlier shaft entrances. The implications are staggering. We're not just looking at individual pyramids with hidden chambers. We're looking at an integrated underground complex that spans the entire plateau. Now, none of this really means anything if the scans can't be duplicated by another team. So the Cafre boys are now working with Stanford University and other professional institutions to replicate their methods and validate their findings. The peer review process is happening in real time. But here's the beautiful part. This technology works from satellites that no government controls. The Egyptian ministry can't say no to a non-invasive scanning from space. The data keeps coming whether they approve it or not. This new presentation goes a long way to backing up and expounding on the original claims. What seemed like impossible assertions now have documented technological validation. The team isn't just saying, trust us. They're showing exactly how they developed the technology, proved it works, and applied it systematically. The team's ultimate goal remains physical verification through excavation. That's the only way to definitively confirm what their radar technology has detected. But given the Egyptian government's protective stance toward Giza, that permission won't come easily. Here's where we circle back to our good friend Zahi Hawass. Dr. Hawass is an archaeologist, Egyptologist, lecturer, and former Egyptian Minister of Antiquities. Notice the word former. He's not the current director of antiquities, but he is still the biggest fish in their little pond. And he thinks this whole SAR scan business is a bunch of hooey. But then again, sounds like, according to him, he's the only one who knows the truth about the pyramids, and even claims to have discovered the Osiris shaft.
Do you know about the Osiris shaft? How they've got a
I
scanned?
discovered it.
You did, right?
Yes.
But do you know that they use this tomographic
No,
radar? And
no, I am the one who found it.
Which is a lie. He excavated it in 1999 and got to the lowest point anyone can get at the moment, but it was discovered in the early 1800s by Giovanni Battista Caviglia and was first documented in 1933 to 1934 by Salim Hassan as being a bigger deal than just a hole in the ground. But of course, he has nothing to hide and nothing to gain, right?
Are they online?
No, in my book, Giza and the Pyramids. In my book, Giza and the Pyramid.
Are there photos of this?
Of course, in my book. It's in my book. It's in my book. If you go to my book, we'll never put it online. It's in my book. Ask the people online, but they are in remains in my book.
Are they
yes,
able to see?
in my book. I don't.
Boy.
I don't go online. Why I have to go online? I go to my book.
I think it's rather interesting that his two biggest beefs with the Khafre Project is that one, they've never been to Egypt. Well, when your data comes from a satellite that makes a trip around the globe every 90 minutes, you don't have to go to Egypt. And second, that they didn't go through the peer review process. However, with validated technology, peer review from major institutions currently in progress, and growing international pressure for transparency, that excavation approval becomes increasingly inevitable. Especially considering that, at least to start, we don't have to do anything invasive. The scans show the Osiris shaft goes down another couple hundred feet below from the current bottom. So send a remote control sub with a light and a camera, or even an endoscopic camera, and see if there's anything else down there. What's the harm? It's possible that there really is nothing to see, that the bottom is bricked off from anything beneath it, with the water just seeping through the cracks. But to my knowledge, no one's tried anything new since 1999. But the easiest first step is to dig under the pyramid. Sounds huge, I know, but each pyramid sits on a slab of limestone. So digging a small shaft right under that slab should not upset the pyramid itself. The slab is only about 30 feet thick, and the pillars are supposed to be going down from there. So they should only have to dig down like 50 feet diagonally. If the pillars are there, they should be easy to find. At that point, if they are there, then start the discussions about how to better confirm what the scans show is even deeper. If these structures exist as the evidence suggests, we're not just rewriting Egyptian history. We're confronting the possibility that human engineering capabilities 4,500 years ago, or perhaps much earlier, exceeded anything we thought possible. The underground complex beneath Giza might represent the most sophisticated ancient engineering project ever discovered. And we're watching its revelation unfold live with technology that didn't even exist a decade ago. The Cafre Project has moved from making extraordinary claims to providing extraordinary evidence. Their technology seems to work. Their methodology seems sound. Their discoveries are being independently validated. So, I guess time will tell. But make no mistake, the Khafre Project boys are far from backing down. They are staking their entire careers on the outcome. I gotta hand it to them. They're sure that what they've shown us is really there. According to Corrado Malanga, this technique provides direct measurements that do not leave room for possible mysterious interpretations. And only a tetra-vaccinated person would not notice things that any squid, a fish species known for having only one giant neuron, should admit without any brain effort. The pyramids we have stared at for millennia may just be the tip of the iceberg. And now, finally, we're beginning to see what lies beneath. The Cafre Project evidence is mounting and the discoveries keep coming. If anything further develops on this particular front, I will be back to let you know. If you want to dive deeper into the technical details, I'll put a link to the full presentation in the description. If you want to take a look at our other episode on the Cafre Project, click right here. Be careful out there, and I will see you here again on the In-Between.